share your screen. You can share that presentation, or I share from my end. I don't know.
Okay, you can just share from your end if it's okay. You can try sharing, please.
No, on my end, I don't have the rights.
Oh, you can try. Make it co-host.
Okay.
Okay.
So, hello, everybody. For today's session, we're going to really have a brief introduction on food safety and hygiene in the context of AMR. And after that, this presentation should be about 5 to 10 minutes. Like I said, it's an ideation session. It's really elaborate, so to really touch the critical points. Then from there, but as I present, kindly take note of where you see gaps, challenges with regards to food safety and hygiene in this AMR context, as that will inform our forthcoming discussions. So food safety looks at basically the handling, the preparation and storage of food in ways that are safe, or in ways that prevent those foodborne diseases. And it is a fundamental aspect or issue to good health and essential for the attainment of the Sustainable Development Goals. As you know, foodborne diseases in Africa are a very significant public health concern. So many people die annually due to these diseases. I didn't look up the latest statistics on this. Then a significant proportion of the deaths and illnesses in the past have been caused by bacteria, which are now showing increasing levels of resistance to commonly used antimicrobials. An example is you'll find that people in the past, were getting salmonellosis, but right now the salmonella species are gaining an increased level of resistance, and these salmonella species could be from either the animals or from the animals or from the environment. So unsafe food is not only a threat to human health, but also plays a fundamental role in socioeconomic development of countries. As you know, if food is not safe and leads to illness, there's an issue of wastage of funds, trying to treat someone who is sick. So in the context of the Sustainable Development Goals, sorry, maybe I'll go back a bit. So for each slide, I've tried to put a reference at the bottom for the team to be able to refer to some of those references. So with regards to the Sustainable Development Goals, food safety is integral to attaining goal number 1, 2, 3, and 6. So number 1, which talks about the no poverty. I think that's really straightforward. When people get sick due to either the resistant bugs or the non-resistant bugs in food, they end up in hospitals where they incur bills or a high cost of treatment. Then the zero hunger, then the good health and well-being, and then clean water and sanitation. But it also contributes to the achievement of goal 5, which is gender equality. As you know, the people who are in gender mainstreaming are really very critical about the role played by the females or the ladies with regards to food production. Then it also contributes to decent work and economic growth, industry, innovation, and infrastructure. So all of these, food safety contributes to these different SDGs. And the reference is also down here in this PDF that I managed to attach. So to draw back to the drawing board, food safety or food itself plays a critical role in the development and spread of AMR. So when this AMR comes up, or when the resistant bugs within the production system or along the food chain, there are potential routes or potential points or critical points for exposure of the humans and animals, even in some instances, the environment. And this has, implications on health. So therefore, the good hygiene practices in agriculture are fundamental in achieving food safety and are also key to addressing AMR. So also below this, I've added the reference on where to get this. So let's look at this complex web. How is everything interconnected? Or let's look at, how does, if we're talking about food hygiene, let's look at it from the broader aspect. So let's start from the infographic on the left of this screen, this one here. So animals, like people, they carry these bags in their gut. So this is from the CDC, one of their fact sheets that they produced on this. So when animals are slaughtered and processed for food, so these resistant bugs, or those that are not even resistant, can contaminate the meat or any other animal products. And people can get sick from eating or handling this contaminated food, or from contact with animals and their surrounding. This is the first aspect when it comes to the consumption part. But again, when we go down to the aspect where you're looking at on the farm, so antibiotics save lives. However, anytime antibiotics are used, the drugs can contribute to the development of antibiotic resistance. As you know very well that many of us on our farms, or on the farms that we know of, there's a high use or misuse even, or irrational use of antibiotics, and this is really driving resistance in the food production systems. And then, as you know, that most of the antibiotics or the drugs we use within these farms or to treat our animals, it's excreted in the waste. So this waste carries traces of the resistant bugs or the residues of those antibiotics. And then, most times we handle this waste in ways that are not safe. Let me say I'm just, when you're cleaning the animal houses, or you're doing any other business about the farms, you can easily contaminate yourself. But also, many of us use this manure from these animals as fertilizer on the farms. Therefore, we end up again contaminating other foods like the fruits that we have, or vegetables, any other, fruits that you may be having on the farm, including even flowers. Another interesting bit is that people use even that manure in their aquaculture farms, and you wonder, how is that possible? They claim the manure is food to fish, but they don't know that they're contaminating the fish with these bugs. So then the other aspect is now with regard to the crop farming. Antibiotics and antifungals are applied as pesticides to manage crop disease. And this usually speeds up the development and spread of resistant bugs by contaminating the soil and water. So stormwater and irrigation water from the farmland can contaminate the nearby lakes and rivers. So this point source contaminant, ends up, contaminating other non-point sources like the lakes and rivers. Then when you get to this other infographic, for it is really straightforward. Just move this a bit. So how is food connected to the spread of AMR? This is also, I've also put a reference to this for you to read up more. So remember, animals are given antibiotics. Therefore, resistance may develop within these animals. So, and remember, we end up slaughtering these animals for food. Therefore, the resistant bacteria can spread from the animals to food and food to animals. It's a two-way path. But the same way that, like I explained earlier on, that these resistant bugs can also spread, or they do spread from the animals to the environment, and also from the environment back to the animals. But also, this environment here can also mean that this is where we have our crops, whereby the resistant bugs and everything is moving from the crops to the animals, or from the animals to the crops. It's always a two-way cycle. It's really a complex web. And when we get the food, that is the vegetables, the meat from the animals, the vegetables from the farms, you know, they can contaminate the humans, and also the humans can contaminate these different either the food itself and things like that. You know, it's really a complex web whereby we have the antibiotic use in the humans and animals connected to the environment, and at the same time connected to the food we are consuming across different pathways. But as you know, that these different arrows that are shown here to us on this call are the critical points that we want to look at, because that's where our thoughts should be. What one will wonder is if I want to control this issue of this AMR within the food, what is that critical point I can tap into? I can try to cut off the contamination of the food, of the food from the animals, you know. I can try to, you know, disconnect the interconnection between the humans and the environment. So those are the things we look at, or that we want to look at as we move ahead. And those are some of the things we want to listen from me in the next few minutes. And on this, I've also attached the links from where you can pick these, or the references. So this is also not any different, just that this one is more detailed for this slide, whereby we are looking at all animals being able, or having bugs within their intestines or within their gut. And to them, that's normal flora. But, you know, these could be either resistant or not resistant. Those that are not resistant, usually when you treat with antibiotics, they die off, but the resistant ones survive and they really multiply. So these resistant bugs can spread via animal products when you slaughter these animals and you're not following the right practices. So you end up contaminating the food or the animal products like beef, or you end up using the contaminated water or soil or anything that you have picked from these animals, for example, the manure. You know, then also preparing this food through contaminated surfaces, and then the environment when animals poop. You know, it's also a different, all these are, they're just trying to show us along the food chain what is that issue. And then the exposure really is at the point of consumption of this food for us, the humans. And the impact is either mild illness or severe illness, which has an economic implication, or a socio-economic implication, right from someone may not be able to go to work, you know, they're not able to raise enough money. So then they have longer days of hospitalization, which is also an issue. Then when you look at the infographic on the right top, on the top right, you know, when food and feeding play a critical role with regards to AMR. You know, as poor infection and disease prevention and control, and then the transmission, which leads to the transmission of resistant pathogens within the food production, storage, distribution, and preparation, which is basically the food safety aspect. All this impacts in a number of ways. You know, there's a risk to food and feed production, businesses and trade, you know, but there's also an interaction with climate change. There's increased morbidity and mortality in humans and animals. And all these lead to economic damage and loss of productivity and increased healthcare expenditures. So these are all complex webs, whereby if we're looking at food safety, what I'm trying to show you is that we need to look at it from One Health perspective, from an angle whereby all of us have a role to play. How? The animals or the humans that are misusing or overusing the drugs, once they're able to shed off resistant bugs. For example, I don't know whether all of us are familiar with Typhoid Mary. Imagine at that time, Typhoid Mary was shedding off resistant bugs of Salmonella typhi. What would the implication be as it was, whereby people get sick and, some die, then some survive. I have a feeling it would even be worse, So all this, when you look at it now, like water, sanitation, and hygiene, it also has a critical role it plays in food safety. The environment itself, the crops, the terrestrial and aquatic animals. So we need to look at this from a point of view whereby we are considering all the different aspects and not only looking at the food alone. So maybe to be more elaborate on what we are trying to talk about is, let's look at the food production chain from the farm to the table. For some of us, I know in our setting, it's usually from the farm straight to the kitchen. This is the bottom right. I don't know whether we can all see this. Can someone confirm we are seeing this screen?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
visible.
Okay, so, in our context, some of us just have a straight arrow. I'll just pick up, just draw. So some of us have a straight arrow, which is this, from the farm to the kitchen. But what happens is that it's usually from the field, then transported to a storage facility, then transported to food processing, then transported to a food manufacturer, then transported to the distributor, then transported to the retailer, where most of us buy the food from. Then you move it to your house, then into a kitchen. But all these points where I've tried to show the red are those critical points where we as innovators have to think about with regard to food, to food safety. From the field to the transportation vehicle, what is the issue there? Or from an abattoir to a transportation vehicle, how is it being done? Is there any contamination of this food? And who is handling it? Do these people have medical, have they undergone medical examination by a doctor? Are they the right people to do the transportation? Have they been trained, to look at all this? Then the storage facility, how is it? That storage facility, is it for wet food or dry food? That food facility, are there animals? Are there rodents, rats and the like, that can easily contaminate the food? The food processing, how are the processes being done? The people in there, are they the right people to do the job? Or are they sicklers of some disease or carriers of a disease that we're not certain about? Then the food manufacturers, how are they doing? What are the processes? How do they package the food? Is it in a safe way? When they're packaging or after the processing, or even during the processing, are they using any chemicals? Are those chemicals safe? As you know, sometimes the food we have has microorganisms that usually are not, they may not be dangerous. For example, meat. But the question is, after it's processed using chemicals, have those bugs died off, or have they just gained resistance and, stayed in the food? The food manufacturer, how is he doing the work? And then all these people that are transporting along the chain, the distributor, are they using the right vessels? Or are they using bicycles and then they're carrying a whole thigh of, a cow, when it's open out in the air? Then the retailers, how are they doing? How are they storing the food within their premises and things like that? But even at this point, from the retailer, it can go into another aspect, which can be a commercial infrastructure. Many of us have, I'm sure you're certain about roadside, people who do the roadside chicken roasting or food markets. It can come from the retailer into a commercial line. So those are all aspects we need to look into, because they really affect how the safety of this food. So what do we need to do as innovators? So we've run through a bit of some gaps, which aspect I didn't want to go really in detail, because I believe everyone on the call will be able to give us their views. So the first one is improve individual capacity. As an innovator, we are supposed to look out for knowledge. You need to know enough before we can act. We don't want to be caught along the way, and we're actually doing things that are really not, or that are not standard, if I'm to call it that. This can be through online courses. This particular one with FutureLearn looks at AMR with regards to food production, the same as this one, the one I put here for FAO, and the Global Health Network e-learning courses. We need to also read these updated guidelines from FAO, WHO, UNEP, and the World Organization for Animal Health. We're looking at AMR, but we need to understand what are the guidelines that have come. We may be following a guideline that is old. We may be following a guideline of 2004, yet there's a guideline of 2020. We need to really be updated. You need to build that individual capacity, and that will only be developed by yourself. As you know, most of us in our studies, except if you're a microbiologist, you may not come across AMR, So those are all the aspects that we need to look into. Then we need to strengthen the surveillance of AMR in the food chain. This will help us increase the available knowledge base. Right now we are saying that yes, they're resistant bugs, but the question is, at what point are those bugs, entering into the food chain? And then if we are able to identify those points, that can be very important in guiding the risk management, at those critical points, and also inform policy. As I believe most of us, or most of you on this call, whatever ideas you have, at the end of the day, you're targeting that they develop into some bit of policy. They can inform policy, not just do something and then walk away at the end of the day. No, I believe if we start looking at things in this aspect, that if I'm to do this 5 years down the road, I should be able to inform policy somewhere, Then there's also need for antibiotic stewardship for prudent use of antimicrobials in human and animal health and agriculture. As this is critical in reducing the risk of AMR proliferation or development within the common food pathogens. Then there's also a need to promote the good food hygiene practices at all levels, including infection prevention and control, and then also water, sanitation, and hygiene. This looks at the different levels. Basically, if you're into production, people at abattoirs, people in farms, people in the different contexts, regardless, you need to keep an eye at that. How can this be done? You're just basically translating the knowledge into practice. You can decide, I'm going to do an awareness among food handlers so that this and happen, this is my target. I'm going to go out there and check how are their practices, and things like that. We just need to think about things in that line. And then one thing that is critical when it comes to save food is keep clean, separate the raw from the cooked, cook thoroughly, keep food at safe temperatures, and use safe water and raw materials. And a reference to this is also attached in here for your free time. So at this point, I'll just hand over to Daniel to guide us in the next on what we will do next. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Herman, for that elaborative talk, and also trying to also pinpoint us to where the challenges are. And I think we've had a good introduction, and we had shared the presentation with you quite prior, and also highlighted some of the questions that we need to look at. I can see that responses are already coming, quite many are coming in, especially maybe via chat, some have inboxed. So we'll do this with a bit of order, that at least we're able to, give everyone a chance, especially those who had expressed interest earlier. And I would love to start with George. So George, if you're there, I think he had reached out some time before. So George, maybe the floor is yours. You can take us through the two questions. What are some of the gaps that you have identified, and what solutions then would you infer? Yeah, innovative solutions. Okay, over to you, George.
Thank you very much, and I hope I'm audible. Okay, so I went for the challenges and gaps. I'd gone through some research some time back for my country in AMR in agriculture. And I also used the slides given. So I identified some of the gaps as, and a lack of knowledge and awareness. It's not only among the professionals, because looking at some of the research, you notice that the farmers themselves will go and self-prescribe for their animals if they fall ill, and they will use antibiotics, which they procure from in Kenya, we call them agro-veterinary shops, in short, agrovets, and they go and purchase them without prescriptions and go and use them at home. And in terms of poor surveillance, there's poor quality assurance at both large scale and small scale facilities. Like, you will notice that even in the big hotels and the big food producers and suppliers, there's issues with following food quality standards and following steps such as the HACCP standards. And it's a problem also at the small scale facilities like the roadside kiosks and the likes. And a lack of accountability. This lack of accountability by even the veterinary professionals and other professionals in the food industry when it comes to, for the veterinary personnel, when it comes to prescription. You notice that in Kenya, for example, a farmer will go to the vet shop and purchase the antibiotics, go and administer them to their animals without the vet in charge there ever knowing. And the person who sold this to them is actually just an employee at the shop who is not probably qualified to even prescribe this medication. And in terms of good hygiene, in Kenya, we have some slum areas and some congested areas. And in these places, you find people still selling food on the streets, and next to them is a sewage line or something. And it's so hard to maintain hygiene in such a place. And these people also lack the general knowledge in food handling and the whole process of the farm, from the farm to the plate. It's maintain hygiene. And the final one is poverty, which contributes to all the problems I have listed. Do I also go directly to the solutions?
Yes, George, you can go direct to the solutions. Maybe, yeah, and I think what we'll do after this, each one of us then can write down. You know, we say if it's not documented, then it will not happen. So for now, we can just listen. Anastasia, you can just share your screen so that you're able to see the different questions. I think we can have them written down after this, because it was also a small time. Yeah, so George, maybe you can go ahead and share your solutions and maybe try to interlink the gaps and the solution. Thank you.
Okay. So for the lack of knowledge, it is essential that we conduct education programs for communities, for professionals, and this we can achieve by holding meetings such as focus group discussions and engaging in participatory learning. We do not just go to lecture these people. We want to know what do they know so far, and then we tell them, or rather we have a discussion on AMR and educate each other. And we can also enhance legislation, especially in terms of quality assurance and in terms of accountability, as I said, by maybe the vet practitioners, and also in terms of hygiene. I think there's some form of legislation, like in my country, there's some form of legislation, but it's not fully enforced. People will take bribes and people will take all sorts of, and people will overlook even the most obvious of issues in terms of hygiene. And we also need to improve our own research. Like in my country, there's some pool of research available online, but the amount of research that is there is not enough. There's only research in some areas, and in terms of food especially, there's not really much of research. So those are some of the solutions I noted down, and thank you.
Thank you so much, George. Sorry, I forgot to maybe give some time and some duration. So please just take 2 minutes describing very briefly, 2 or 3 minutes, the gaps that you've identified, and then interlink with the solution, so that at least we give many people a chance. So 3 minutes. I don't know whether we interlink them both, or maybe we first hear the challenges and then I think it would be, anyway, let me hear from maybe, what do you think, Mr. Herman? Do we take challenges first and then the innovations, or do we combine?
No, like you said, someone is documenting, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so you can hear both of them from each participant. Then
Okay.
I'll be very glad to support with looking at whatever has been documented, so we can come up with some critical solutions or some workable solutions, something doable by the team, the people on this call.
Okay, thank you so much. So thank you, everyone. Quite a lot of feedback coming in, and so I think we can now, I'll just follow the order. We can move on to Mabula. Mabula is the one who then maybe shared next. Thank you. Mabula, you have 5 minutes to share the challenges and the solutions. Very brief. Is Mabula around? Hello? Okay, I think we can't see Mabula. Then we can go to Faith. Sorry. Marie, are you around? I think you had also shared yours via direct chat, but maybe you can unmute and
Yes,
share.
I'm here.
Okay, go ahead. Very
Okay,
briefly,
so
please.
the gaps I found were well, in my community there are a lot of people who breed livestock and they don't have demarcated breeding grounds for the livestock, so they walk through water bodies. And I've also seen farmers give their livestock antibiotics for the sole purpose of getting their animals to get fatter. Well, in the long run, we are looking at a situation of resistant microbes forming in these animals. So the innovative point I came up with was the veterinary officers, in collaboration with the Food and Drugs Board in my country, FDA, they should regulate the people who rear livestock and ensure that they have demarcated breeding grounds. They should also, well, also in terms of awareness, we should also use targeted information to these farmers. Now, you can't use certain information that would you can't use certain information that professors will understand. You can't use that same information when you are teaching small scale farmers on AMR. So we should use targeted information. And also the AMR Secretariat in my country, Ghana, can collaborate with biochemical personnel, veterinary officers to create a litmus type test for households so that we can test our water for the presence of residual antibiotics before drinking it. And on a larger scale, also, these tests can be used in the agencies that are responsible for providing us with clean water, so that we can have probably a handheld device that will indicate if there are antibiotics present in the water we are about to drink or use. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much. Very brief and to the point. And next we'll go to Damilola. You can go ahead. Hello, Damilola, can you hear us? Okay, maybe as we wait for Damilola, we can move to Samuel Johnny.
Okay, good evening, everyone.
Okay, good. Samuel, 5 minutes. We've started the countdown.
Okay,
Over to you.
as regards the question of the gaps I've discovered, just as the former speaker just spoke about, I discovered that in my area, a lot of persons, they give multivitamins and other antibiotics with the sole aim of getting their animals increase in size above the normal rate. And as a result of that, these bacteria form some resistance. So as a solution to address the gap, I think measures should be taken to educate these ones, because I discovered a whole lot of them are not agriculturists. They just breed these animals. So if we could have educative measures that could be taken in various schools to inform and educate the people, and also local villages, if we could get to such areas and inform the local villagers about the implications of that, I feel it will go a long way to help. Then also policies from the government should be put in place so as to address some of these challenges, because if we have such policies and the right persons are put in place, it will go a long way to contribute to reduce the rate of the rate of bacterial infections and how these drugs are being used. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Johnny, for that. Now we can try and tailor our solutions. I think we are giving, they are good, but they are quite general, guys. And then we'll also, so let's try and have those ones which are a bit tailored. So maybe I'll go back to Damilola, if she's around. Damilola, can you hear us? Okay. I can see, okay, as we wait for Damilola, we can move to Emanuela. Hello, Emanuela. Okay. Am I still audible?
Hello, Daniel, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Over to you.
Okay.
Okay, you can start, Emanuela. 5 minutes.
As the person spoke about it, I spoke about non-compliance of food manufacturers with their food hygiene and safety procedures. So to narrow that down, in Ghana, I was part of a research team, and we found out that we did some research and found out that even most of the products that are released, some people just forge FDA numbers and things like that to show that they are certified, even when they are not. So that's the non-compliance. And then poor surveillance, because something like this should have been easily noticed, but then there isn't active surveillance to check things like that. And lack of standards for certain food products. Most of our roadside vendors, restaurants, once it's not a very big corporation that is producing food or involved in food processing, they are not really checked. They don't have anything to measure them by. There are no bodies or structures that are set up to monitor those people. So they do not have any standards to even go by. So to their action points too. I've spoken a lot about surveillance, so I believe we should improve surveillance. We should get people going around and making periodic checks on such things. And also, most of the surveillance isn't done because there isn't, they don't have proper instruments. If there are tests to be conducted on the products, we do not have a lot of those resources or instruments. So things like that should be provided. I think that's all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Emanuela, for that. Maybe just to trigger you to do some more research. I think someone said about policy, but I think most countries we have policies. And I think sometimes why surveillance becomes difficult, taking case example here in Kenya, and I look at the pharma industry, it's because the surveillance bodies, such as the boards, they're not well capacitated in terms of even human resource. And in terms of, the instruments that are required. You find that also in Kenya, we have a very large output of pharmacists and pharmaceutical technicians who are graduating, but they aren't taken up or given such opportunities, yet they are skilled. So I think that's a gap. So how then do we improve this surveillance? And what innovative ways can we come up with, to trend, interlink this output from this end where you have so many young graduates who are graduating, and at the other side you have a shortage. So just think a bit more on that, and anyone else who is thinking of surveillance, this just to trigger us to go a bit deep into the problem. Yeah, I'll hand over to Damilola. Thank you, and thank you so much, Emanuela.
Thank you too.
Damilola. Okay.
Hello, good evening.
Okay, good evening to you.
Major gap that we see from Nigeria is lack of awareness and information. Majority of these farmers have no understanding of how microorganism works. They don't know that these drugs that they have or these drugs that they buy can cause resistance and all that. And I think it's majorly because we've been talking about resistance in a way that they cannot understand. In the sense that to farming, maybe his generation, he's making his livestock bigger and better, and which brings more money to him. Now, how to tackle this gap is the sense that we have to bring in indigenous information. In Nigeria, we have over 144 languages. If we can have indigenous information whereby AMR can be passed down in a way that that comes down to their level, where they can, okay, this thing has a long way. I mean, your children in a language that they understand. I think that will actually cover the gap of awareness largely, because majority of the cost of AMR is awareness. If awareness is covered up to 90%, I think we can cover every other aspect. I think that's my contribution. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Damilola, for that. The essence of having tailored information, and also trying to also use the local languages, and trying to also propose to them a value proposition. I think it's very important. Once you are telling the farmer not to use the antibiotic for growth promotion, what do they need to do? You also need to give them an alternative on what they need to do to maintain their production, right? Because if you just tell them to stop and then they know that their sales will decrease, then it will be very hard to influence the behavior change. Thank you so much. So we'll go over to Pius Musonda, if you're in the house. Over to you. And thank you, everyone, for the wonderful suggestions.
Thank you very much, Daniel. So basically, I looked for some research to do with food safety and hygiene. And I found this article that talked about some research that was carried out at two prominent marketplaces in Zambia. So one of them was in Lusaka, and the other one was in Kasumbalesa. So Kasumbalesa is basically at the border shared with Congo, that Zambia shares with Congo. So they were looking at farmers who sell goats, and yes. So one thing that they found was that a number of those farmers, they interviewed them, and they admitted that they do pass veterinary checkpoints and possibly do sell some animals that are sick. And to bring it to a local context in my community, there's quite a number of people who happen to rear chickens and all sorts of animals just right in their backyard. And most people buy from those people who are rearing chickens in their backyard, and you don't know whether they undertook any hygienic practices and whether they used any growth promoters for that, such as antibiotics. And so there is that great risk of AMR that we do not know about. And I think what we could do to try to cover this gap, especially from the people who are selling in the local backyards, I think that it's very difficult for us to implement policy that will cater for these people who are small-scale farmers. I think it would be very impossible to implement that. We simply do not have the manpower. The research that I found pointed out that one of the reasons these farmers miss these veterinary checkpoints is because they're understaffed. And so I think we're quite far from there. I think what we need is to basically educate ourselves as consumers, because what the farmers are interested in is basically making the sale. So if we're able to educate the consumers and the consumers express their displeasure and consumers do not buy from these people, I think that way the farmers will be able to change their behavior. So I think we need to target the consumers especially, and really show to them the dangers of this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pius, for that interesting angle too. Thank you so much. We'll move over to Jisril, then we'll now take the hands. Sorry, the ones who are responding are those ones who had reached out some time prior. Then I'll think from now we can move over to those of us who have raised their hands. So Jisril, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Daniel. So a gap I noticed was that there was this research I used for my project work I did on AMR, and it showed that antibiotics residues were found in animals that had been packaged and sold onto the market. And the farmers said they had never given them any antibiotics, and same for fish. And so I think that the antibiotics end up in water bodies, and then these animals take in the water, and then residue is left. And also, when animals get sick, because they don't have any other antibiotics, they use the same antibiotics that humans use. And when we did vet pharmacy in class, it showed that there wasn't any research that was tailored to the animals as to which doses that they should take. So they just do a try and error, and then give the same dose given to humans, and whether it works or not, or if it kills them or not, then they see what to do. So I think a solution would be to do a research based on animals, if you are going to do their dosing based on their body weight, or find out how the drug would work in their bodies and all that, so that animals who have a lot of fat, and some antibiotics have more affinity for fat. So that could be a reason why some of these residues are left in them. So if we are able to find out the right dose that they need, we'll be able to curb that. And with the antibiotics in water, I think I like Marie's idea of testing the water body. And we should also find a way to get it out so it can be filtered. Yes, please. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jisrael, for that. And it's quite interesting to note that maybe some farmers don't give their animals antibiotics, but they access them from, from water systems. Anyway, and also lack of targeted clinical trials that focus on, I think these big animals in terms of the dosing. We'll move over to Zakata. I've just been told that they had shared their submission before. Are you in the house? Zakata from University of Zimbabwe. Okay. If they're not around, I'll just read their submission. Then we can move over to Muhammad, then OPM. So Zakata says, some of the current gaps in my community, living in a resource-limited country where farming is the main source of income, it's difficult to follow up on antimicrobial use and waste management because there are many unregistered subsistent farmers. Majority of the farmers use animal waste as manure in place of fertilizer due to inability to afford the required fertilizers. So that's the challenge. So what's the intervention? To address this, there's great need of joining heads of the public, that thing that bring different people together. That's what they meant. Educate our farmers as much as we can on hygiene, help find better alternative methods for better farming methods. So that's the solution that they were proffering. So thanks so much, Zakata in absentia, for that submission. We'll move over to Muhammad, just very briefly, and please, maybe already what you had in mind has been said. Please don't repeat. This applies for everyone, so that at least we save on time and we have some fresh ideas. Thank you. Over to you, Muhammad.
Hello everyone, just to confirm, am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, one of the things I've noticed in my environment is mishandling of food as a serious threat to food safety and hygiene in my country, Nigeria. And this occurs through several ways along the food production chain. One of the ways is when animals are slaughtered. I noticed that resistant bacteria could contaminate the food, the meat, and other animal products. And then when animal feces is produced by the animals, it contains some resistant bacteria that could get into the surrounding environment. And then fruits and vegetables could get contaminated through contact with soil, water, or fertilizers that contain these animal feces. So, and once contamination occurs, further mishandling could come about in terms of undercooking of food, or leaving it out on the counter at an unsafe temperature, which could make foodborne illnesses more likely. So many germs grow quickly in food kept in room temperature, and sometimes we try to reheat or reboil such foods, but it doesn't always seem safe because some germs produce toxins that are not easily destroyed by the heat. And then another one is on unhygienic food preparation. A lot of times we visit restaurants to purchase food materials, and then we notice that the food vendors, some of them might be sick and they'll still stay on the job, and then some of them don't usually wash their hands when they use the toilets, and then such food vendors can spread resistant bacteria by handling food meant for customers who come to the restaurant. So solutions to this could be, one of the major ones is raising awareness actually on the issue of AMR in food safety and food chain context, so that producers and the government authority alike are sensitized on its importance, and they need to build strong integrated national food control system that will ensure that all production units in the country follow strict guidelines. Another one is educating the public and food vendors on preventive measures, including safe food handling, safe contact with animals, and proper hand washing, and also sensitizing livestock producers of poultry producers and other industries on the importance of adopting organic means of boosting farm productions, and enrolling in trainings around antibiotic use, and also exploring other alternatives to the use of antibiotics for farm animals. Example is the use of vaccines. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Muhammad. As you've said, please, if anything else has been said, what you had in mind, please let's not repeat so that we save on time. I think we are short of time. I think we can take a few more. Maybe if Mr. Herman will allow us. Opeyemi, over to you.
Thank you very much. Am I audible, please? Hello.
Yes, yes, you're audible. And go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So I noticed that most of the most African countries actually run small scale businesses, and these small scale businesses are usually overlooked by the government and some of the government parastatals. And when it comes to hygiene and sanitation, they really do not put it to consideration as much. Maybe because they feel like most people do not know about their business, so they can actually overlook some things. And this lack of hygiene has helped to promote AMR. So basically, the only solution that could be proposed is when back in the days, especially in my country, there used to be laws and governmental organizations that monthly check the hygienes of markets and other places and places where food items are produced and managed. But unfortunately, over time, this has not been put in place regularly. So I think maybe an awareness to improve people, to increase and improve people's knowledge about sanitation in these places would help to spur the government into making this rule more amiable and making it more feasible for them to be able to use the governmental parastatals which they've put in place before to reduce the AMR and the lack of sanitation and general environmental hygiene. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Maybe just to spark some innovation. Awareness is good, but what happens when there's awareness and we don't have water facilities or we don't have water in the market? Just think around that. Anyway, Faithful, over to you. And sorry, and how can we bring this water available, or the little that is available? How can we then tap it to be used in these places in a sparing way? So think around such too. Thank you. Over to you, Faithful. Sorry for that.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'm Elobon Faithful, and one of the gaps I noticed in my society is there are certain foods that we need to prepare that you can't actually do it on your own. For example, moi moi. If I'm preparing moi moi, I'm going to make use of beans, and after I wash it, I have to go to certain shops outside my home for them to grind it for me. Now, when I get there and I look at the state of the environment, most times it's usually not neat. You can see stagnant water. And because the people that are grinding it for me are going to make use of their own water, I will not be able to trust the source of the water and if they have actually kept these machines well. Now, if these persons don't practice hygiene, keep their environment clean and keep their machines clean, and if it is infected with bacteria, I'm most likely to go back with my grinded pre-meal and it is infected. And I also noticed that in Uganda over here, because they eat a lot of granite paste, where you have to get it from places where they grind it. So it's not something you can easily do on your own. So I noticed this as one of the gaps. And the way I think it can actually be solved is if agricultural-based organizations partner with farmers in different societies and give them as incentives these grinding machines. Now, the farmers are not to keep this with them. They are actually to train their own customers or consumers on how to use these machines. And okay, this is actually for a personal use. Now, for those that would feel like I don't want to do it personally, the government can also make institutions whereby they train specified persons on how to use this machine so that I won't have to go to just any place because I am in need of it. Because these persons who will be trained will know how to keep these machines clean, will have access to good water. And yes, that's everything. Thank you.
Thank you, Faithful, for that. Maybe we can move to Idris.
All right, thank you very
Idris?
much. Am I audible?
Okay. Yes, you're audible. Then we'll move to Balkis. Okay, yeah, you're audible.
Okay, thank you very much. So first off is what are the problems? Well, people have mentioned a lot about the problems already. The ones I want to highlight is the small scale and dissonance. So the small scale basically is that most agricultural and food production in Africa is basically small scaled, making it difficult for the government to implement the policies. Even if there are policies, it's difficult to implement because the guys planting and rearing animals, they're operating a small scale business. So you really can't track them down or check if they're following the policies. So how, the other one is dissonance. There's a separation between AMR stewards and those in the AMR sphere and those actually producing food and rearing animals. So how do we solve this? Well, I have two opinions basically on it. One is the issue of stewardship. Well, we can, for instance, agricultural students in universities, polytechnics and colleges basically, they should be AMR should be incorporated in their courses. So at maybe the internships they go for a couple of months, then they can be assigned to specific local farmers where their aim is to control the antibiotics the farmers they use. So they'll be attached to the farmers. They will learn what the farmers are doing to help in the agricultural course they are doing, obviously. And they can also they can lend the farmer their own knowledge on AMR. So it will be a symbiotic relationship. They are going out ahead with their school, and they're also helping the farmer to reduce the antibiotic usage, and basically AMR burden is being reduced. And the other one is that these small scale farmers, they patronize these shops and pharmacies, and they trust these guys more than if a regular person, if I just walk up to a farmer and start giving them lectures on AMR. So I think we should attack these their sites where they get their drugs and the antibiotics from. How do you attack them? It's just basically assigning stewards, training the people in these shops, training them on AMR. So they are the ones that these farmers trust. If these guys get trained on AMR, they literally become AMR stewards. They know more about the AMR. So they can, when they give advice to their customers who farm and who rear these animals, they take them more seriously, and they tend to follow what these guys that sell drugs to them say. So I think that's basically what I think. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Idris. Maybe Mr. Herman, do you have some time? Maybe take the remaining hands.
No, it's okay. On the call, you had scheduled it up to 8:15, so we have 10 minutes.
Okay. Thank you. We can go to Hamad and Zakia. Then we'll take some from I think chat, and then some which I can see in the group. Okay, over to you, Hamad.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. Good afternoon all. Good evening all. It's evening here in Nigeria. One of the major gaps that I've noticed here in my community is the antibiotic resistance and food poisoning. So we all know that antibiotics are medicine that we take in order for them to help us kill or stop the growth of bacteria in our body. But in doing that, most people don't know that once they keep using antibiotics, the same antibiotics they have in mind to solve their problem would then be one that is going to help in the development of resistance like those bacteria. So in such case, whenever am I audible, please? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So antibiotics, those are they are medicine that we ought to use in order to kill the growth of bacteria. But the resistance then happen when those bacteria then develop the ability to survive and grow despite being exposed to those antibiotics. So in this, when this occurs, it tends to cause more death and a kind of some illnesses that are not that easy to combat. So what we just need in this sense that once we see that we have some kind of symptoms, we are experiencing some kind of symptoms in our body, such as diarrhea, vomiting, and the likes. So it is better we move to those professionals, the healthcare professionals, and talk to them, explain what we are going through within our body, so that they will give us the right thing to do. Maybe a test will first come to know whether we have the AMR that they need to first find a way to stop its effect first before continue to use the antibiotics. So that's number one. And then another one I would say is that there is this lack of knowledge on how food gets contaminated in my society. They don't know that most people don't know that that food gets contaminated rightly from the production to the processing to the distribution and then to preparation. So because of this lack of knowledge in all these things, people don't take much notice of because of this problem, they don't take much caution in the food preparation. So in order to combat this problem of how food gets contaminated, we should always make sure that those people that were in charge of food preparation, they clean their bodies, the workers we should make sure that the workers were sensitized to always wash their hand whenever they visit the toilet, and we should make sure all those knives, the cotton bud, everything that they use, they should make sure that they are well free of contaminations, and so on and so forth. So that's all I have for you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Maybe Zaki, you can take some smaller time, please. Just a few minutes that we wrap up. Over to you.
Good evening.
Something new. Okay. Opening to you.
Okay, good evening. One thing I noticed in my community is low level of education among the food handlers. We all know that formal education has a good, a positive impact on good hygiene practices, and these food handlers lack formal education, and so they tend to overlook their documentations and quality assurance, which is part of food production. So one way to go with this, one way to solve this issue is, I think there should be stipulated qualifications of persons who prepare food for sale. And then I think there should be increased public awareness on good hygiene and safety, food safety practices that consumers should actually look out for apart from the aesthetics. And then my second point was on poor surveillance, and I think somebody has already talked on that, so I'll end here. Thank you.
Thank you, Zakia. I can see many common points coming out. I'm just checking the chat to see what has not been covered yet. I think most things have been covered in terms of surveillance, strengthening capacity, education and awareness. Yeah. So one thing that has come out is that I've also seen Tajuddin also talking about poverty. I think poverty is a driver to most of the challenges that we have. Yeah. Because most of them, it's survival for the fittest, and people just do what maybe it's within their means. And I think it's also good we see how to tackle poverty. So it's a very complex issue with which is multifaceted. I think also empowering farmers and showing them that, you know, there are alternatives on how you can really boost production without having to use maybe antibiotics, and while maintaining inexpensive good hygienic practices. Now the word is inexpensive. That's what, maybe we got some innovations on how to do this inexpensively, then I think it would really work, because it will be easy to large scale this. I'll hand over now to Anastasia, maybe to just read the maybe key points captured. Then I think we'll then hand over to Mr. Herman, then we close. Thank you so much, everyone, for the suggestions. I know there are many that we haven't read, many which have been shared via chat. We have noted all of them and we'll document them. Yeah, so no worries. Thanks so much. Over to you, Anastasia.
Thank you very much, Daniel. So just a recap of the wonderful discussions we just had. So two major points that did come out were the lack of awareness and the lack of awareness on the drivers of AMR, the people in the food production chain practice. Some of the solutions that was the need to convert AMR knowledge into our local languages to encourage understanding and or to promote easy understanding. The next one was finding ways to improve awareness among the consumers, so encouraging farmers to necessary measures to stop the spread of AMR. Then a solution that was educate people in food production, food is contaminated in order to promote this food.
Anastasia, you're breaking. Okay, seems we lost Anastasia, but since everything has been recorded, then I think can then refer to it afterwards. Yeah, so thank you so much, everyone, for the suggestions. Please let's do more research and think into more innovative solutions that we can come up with, and also look at the aspect of why are some of the existing solutions that have been proposed over and over again not working. I think that can also help us in terms when we are coming up with solutions. Thank you so much, and let me hand over to Mr. Herman for the final remarks, because I see we are now short of time. Thank
you, Daniel, and thank you everyone for those great discussions. And I think one thing that is very clear is that in our different contexts, regardless of the country, we literally face the same challenges or the same problems, and that calls for for some concerted efforts or knowledge sharing across these countries. So maybe the parting shot I have is actually on one of the, I think one of you talked about it in the chat, is about the length of the interventions. As we come up with these projects, let's look at the sustainability plan. However short or however small your project is, just try to think about a sustainability plan. Because if you do something and it ends after a month, I mean, what will happen after a month? And as we are doing that, that sustainability part can also draw the attention of the different policymakers. And by that, just imagine your small project having to drive policy in your country. Those are things I really want us to think about. You come up with a small project, but it's really functional, it's efficient, sustainable. I mean, it will draw these guys' attention. Thank you, and enjoy your evening. Over to you, Daniel.
Thank you so much for that. I really do appreciate Mr. Herman for making this session as engaging as possible. I think that's really a good approach, because you can see people already have the information, they have experienced it, and I think when we have a discussion, we also get new ideas. So thank you so much, everyone who has contributed. Thank you for those who contributed via chat. We noticed them. Those who contributed via the different communication platforms, we have noted them too. It's just that we were short of time and couldn't really cover everyone, but we are really appreciative. And we'll just do a summary, then we'll share. As has been shared, try and have something feasible, which is sustainable. And I think this way able to capture the eye of the different organizations, institutions, or even the government, and so that at least they can take up what you have. Yeah, and just doing consistent research and seeing how you can apply what you have. And I believe this is just the beginning. We can really do so much in terms of the topic for today. So thank you so much, everyone. Maybe Anastasia, you back?
My network is stable. Yeah.
Okay, thanks too. Thank you to Anastasia for maybe recording down everything. Yeah, and at this juncture, I would also love to recognize we had Miss Grace in the house too. Thank you to Grace for joining, and also thank you for helping coordinate to the delivery and also for us to have these sessions. And thank you once more, Mr. Herman. Thank you, everyone, and have a wonderful evening. And thank you to our participants for joining and creating time and participating. Bye, everyone, and have a wonderful evening.